Hello there, this is Gaurav Mishra from Gaurav Tutorials, and in this class we will be continuing our discussion on the plant growth and the development. In the last class we have discussed about what is growth and what is development. In today's class we will be continuing the same discussion and we will be talking about how is the plant growth indeterminate. Okay, so let me put it down. Plant growth is indeterminate. Now see, at first I need you to understand that the growth of the plant in itself is very unique, right? So let me point it down. The plant growth is unique in its pattern. Now this comes from the fact that the plant has got an ability to grow throughout its life, right? So plants know they can have unlimited growth. Okay, they could have unlimited growth, and this growth is throughout their life. The growth of the plant is throughout the life of theirs, right? Now why does this happen? So, like that the plant is able to grow throughout their life, and why do they have unlimited growth? It comes from the fact that they have got a group of specialized cells called as meristem. They have got a group of specialized cells called as meristems. Now these cells have the ability, the meristems have the ability to divide, right? They keep on dividing and add new cell to the plant. They keep on dividing and add new cells to the plant, right? So what you'll find is there is a meristem. Now these meristems will divide and they'll form new cells. Okay, these cells will go ahead and they would actually elongate, and then they will differentiate. What would this meristem do? The parent cell will do. It will divide again and add new cells. These cells will again elongate and undergo differentiation, right? The meristems which is left would again divide and would elongate. I mean, they would form the new cells. The new cells would elongate and they would again differentiate. So what is happening is this parent cell, the parent meristem cell, would not differentiate itself. However, the product of the meristems have the tendency to elongate and differentiate. Right. Now, this is something very fascinating in case of the plants. Now, as this meristems we talk about, meristems are basically localized into the apices. I think in the last video we have had a discussion on this. Just let me go through it. No. So meristems in case of the plants, no, they are localized into special regions called as apices. That is the tip. Okay, apice or apex. I'll call it apex or the tip of the plant. Okay, we'll have a discussion on this in the later half of the video. But for time being, I would actually want you to understand that the growth of the plant are of two types. We do say that the plant has an indeterminate growth, but this is not absolutely true. You understand? That is not absolutely true. The plants do not have, actually they do not have indeterminate growth. They have two types of growth with respect to the addition of the new cells. So there are two types of structures in the plant, and they would go a different type of growth. There are certain region of the plant that would undergo determinate type of growth. Okay, determinate means a growth that is limited. Okay, and then the other type of growth, it's indeterminate growth. This means the growth would be throughout the life. Determinate growth. Right. Now, what are the different plant structures that would undergo determinate type of growth? Now, these are the structures like leaves. Then you have structures like the flower. You have fruits. What do these structures do, boys and girls? Is actually they grow to a certain size. Okay, they grow to a certain size. Just a minute. Yeah, they grow to a certain size, and after that, the growth stops. Right, the growth stops. They attain a certain size, and then the growth stops. Like, say for example, if you have a fruit like this mango, Okay, now you do not find the mango to grow and achieve a height that is immeasurable. That does not happen. Like, that does not happen. You have pumpkin. Okay, there are certain varieties of pumpkins that can attain a weight of more than 200 kilogram, but not all the pumpkins are able to do so, and it will not grow into tons of weight. Right, you find that the plant would grow, the structures like leaves, flowers, and the fruit, they would grow to a certain height or to a certain size, and acquire a certain shape, and post that it will stop. So such a growth which is restricted to certain dimensions is referred to as a determinate type of growth, right? Whereas if you talk about the vegetative stem of the plant, okay, you talk about the vegetative structures like the stem and root, right? You find the stem and the roots can grow throughout their life, right? They grow throughout the life. A stem can attain immeasurable height. Similarly, the roots will grow throughout the life. Stem will go throughout the life, right? So such a growth becomes a indeterminate growth. I have written it interminate growth. I'm sorry for this. This is indeterminate growth, right? Now, once these structures like the root and the stem, they develop a reproductive part. Okay, as soon as these guys develops reproductive part here would be flower, and then the flower will develop into a fruit. Again, this indeterminate growth, since it has taken a certain shape, it has taken a certain size, will stop and will become determinate. Okay, so in case of the stem, let's talk about this thing. That's a stem. Then you have a certain branch. Now, this branch has got a tendency to grow indefinitely, right? It has got a tendency to develop indefinitely. But as soon as this branch develops a flower on it, what do you find? This flower becomes a structure that will show determinate type of growth, right? Similarly, the stem, if the tip of the stem, it terminates into a flower, it will acquire determinate type of growth, right? So that's something very unique with respect to the plants, right? That's something very unique with respect to the plants, and this comes from the fact that these guys have got some cells called as, these guys have got some cells called as meristems that has the tendency to divide and add new cells. All right, so there are basically three types of meristems, and let's make a flow chart and try to understand how does this happen. So at first you have got growth taking place in the plants. Now there'll be two classes of plants. You'll have a developed plant and you'll have an underdeveloped plant. You could have some algal growth in the form of a unicellular organism. In fact algae belong to the into the plant category, right? So for a unicellular plant, the growth occurs all over the body. It occurs all over the body, right? That means if I have a unicellular algae in the form of let's say chlamydomonas, or I've got what do I say, volvox, so I'll find these guys will accumulate protoplasm and increase their size. Here there is no specific region that will undergo growth. In fact, the whole organism, whole plant will undergo growth. Okay, and therefore I'll write it is not restricted to a particular region. It is not restricted to a particular region. Not restricted to a particular region. All right. I'm sorry for that again. Yeah. However, if you talk about these plants which are multicellular, so for a multicellular plant, we do observe that growth is restricted to certain regions only. Okay, the growth in case of the multicellular plant is restricted to certain regions, and those certain regions we do know are the places where we have those specialized cells called as meristem. So growth in case of the plant would be restricted to those regions in a multicellular plant, will be restricted to those regions which will have meristems on them. Okay, so on the basis of the meristem that are present in the plant, I'll find there are different positions where these meristems are found. There are regions called as there are meristems called as apical meristems or apical meristems. Similarly, you have got another class of meristems called as intercalary meristem, and lastly you have got meristems called as lateral meristems. These lateral meristems can be further divided into two parts. They are also referred to as cambiums at time. So the lateral meristems can also be referred to as cambiums, and cambiums are of two types. There's a cork cambium, and then there is a vascular cambium. All right, let's talk about the apical meristem for time being. Apical meristems, as the name suggests, they are present at the tip of the plant. Now you could have these tips at the root, or you could have it at the shoot, right? That means if I were to draw a typical plant, that becomes the root, this becomes the root, and then this will become the shoot. All right, then let the branches arise from here. So all these regions which happens to be the tip of the plant for time being, this becomes a root apex or root tip, whereas these particular parts will become the shoot tips. So these will be the sites where you will be finding the plants to possess this cells called as meristems. Right, now these meristems, when we will talk about them, what will they do? As they add the new cells, right, as these cells add the new cells along the length of the plant, right, as these guys add the new cells along the length of the plant, what do? They cause the elongation of the plant, right? As these guys will add the new cells along the length of the plant, I'll say they cause the elongation of the plant. That is basically, I'll find that the plants would increase in height, right? So I'll write it in the bracket, increases the height of the plant. Now such a growth whereby the height of the plant increases, is called as a primary growth. So you might come across this thing, that what is a primary growth? So the primary growth is a growth that is caused by the apical meristems, which results into the increase of the height of the plant. Right, now coming back to this thing, and let me zoom into this plant structure. Yeah, so while this plant was dividing and adding the while this apical meristem was dividing and adding the new cells along the length of the plant, some of these meristems gets trapped. Okay, let me choose a different color. Some of these meristems, they get trapped between the permanent cells, right? Some of these meristems gets trapped between these permanent cells, and they result into formation of a meristem called as intercalary meristems, right? So what is an intercalary meristem? If you were to answer that, intercalary meristem is a meristem. It's a part of apical meristems. Okay, it is a part of apical meristem. Now these apical meristems left behind and trapped between the permanent cells. Now, however, these these meristems which are trapped between the permanent cells will not lose its tendency to divide, right? Now let's say these are a bunch of cells, those are permanent cells, and between these permanent cells, what do you find? You'll find few meristems. So what do you find is these meristems, in spite of the fact that they are trapped between the permanent cells, would not lose their tendency to divide. They would keep on adding the new cells, right? They would keep on adding the new cells, resulting into the formation of a bulge, right? So if that is my stem, that's my stem, and due to the action of this meristem, it forms a bulge on the outer part. It forms bulge on the outer part of the meristem, and that bulge can be referred to as nodes. It can be referred to as the nodes. So what do you find from the nodes? We find there is emergence of the leaves, right? Similarly, if you cut down the plant from this particular region, I'm sorry for that. If you actually cut down the plant from this particular region, what do you find? What can you find in fact? Will the plant cease to grow? Do the plant ceases its growth? Yeah. Can this happen if I cut down a certain part of the plant? The growth stops. Does that happen? Does that actually happen? The growth of the plant stops when I cut it down? No, it does not happen. You find from the sides wherever these nodes are present, you find there is emergence of new branch, or maybe a new plant in fact. Okay, you find there is a new branch emerging from this thing. So that comes because of the intercalary meristems. Okay, so what do the meristems do is they are responsible for the localized growth. They are responsible for the localized growth. It will not cause the whole plant to grow, but a certain region of the plant to grow. And they are present at the bases of nodes or internodes. Now, what are these nodes and internodes? Nodes, I've already told you. Internodes is, if you observe the structure of the sugar cane, you'll find it is made up of many such units, right? So this particular region forms a node. This particular region forms a node, and the distance between the two nodes here, this particular region that you find between the nodes, is referred to as a internode. Okay. You'll be able to find these intercalary meristems prominently in the plant like bamboo, and you'll be also able to find it in the mint plant. All right. Now coming to the lateral meristems. Now, unlike the apical and the intercalary meristems, which are dividing along the length of the plant, the lateral cambium or the lateral meristems have the tendency to divide radially. Right, they have the tendency to divide radially. They would not divide along the length of the plant. However, these guys have the tendency to divide radially along the girth of the plant. Right. So what would they do is they would divide radially, and because of this radial division of the plant, what can they do is they can cause the increase in girth of the plant. Increase in girth of the plant. Girth of plant. So I would want you to understand what is this girth. If this is the length of the plant, if the growth of the plant is along this way, right, along the length, it'll be called as a primary growth. However, if you talk about the growth of the plant which occurs along its diameter, right, along its circumference, then such a growth occurs because of this radial the lateral meristem, and such a growth, boys and girls, will be referred to as a secondary growth. So again, you actually can have an understanding that there are two different types of meristem are working together for two different types of growth in the plant. When the growth occurs along the length of the plant, you call such a growth as a primary growth, which is the action of the primary meristems, that is the apical meristem along the root and the shoot apex. Then if the plant, you find, increases its girth, if you find that the plant is increasing its girth, it will come because of the radial division of the meristem along the circumference of the plant, and such a growth will be referred to as a secondary growth, and it comes because of the action of the lateral meristems. Right? I hope you would have understood what was being conveyed in the video. I'll just have a brief recall of what we studied in this class. Like we actually talked about the fact that the plant growth is indeterminate, which is not absolutely true, because the plants have a tendency to grow throughout their life, but this tendency to grow throughout the life is restricted only to certain regions, and those are the stems and the root. However, the structures like the leaf, the flower, and the fruit does not have this ability to divide throughout their life. They grow only till a certain size, and then the growth ceases in them. Such a growth is a determinate growth. However, the root and the stem can grow throughout the life because of the presence of the meristem. Then we also talked about the fact that there are different types of meristems present in the plant. Those are apical meristem, intercalary meristem, and the lateral meristem. The apical meristem will lead to the growth of the plant along the length, and the growth would be called as a primary growth. And the lateral growth or the lateral meristem will result into the radial division of the meristems and cause the increase in the girth of the plant. This growth will be called as secondary growth. I hope you would have understood, and if that is the case, you can like the video. If at all you find the channel to be helpful, you can also subscribe, and it will be a request that you share the video with your friends and help them also get benefited. And yeah, see you in the next video, in which we'll be talking about the fact that the growth of the plant is measurable.